What's going on, guys? K-Pad here and welcome back. And in this video, I'll be featuring the team that not only got me Legend, but number 8 on the global leaderboards. The team consists of Sludgewave Tentacruel Lead, and yes, Sludgewave is preferred over Acid Spray, Flash Cannon Ferrothorn on the safe swap, and Leavanny Closer. Basically, the goal of this team is to strip shields from your opponent and save your own shields for Leavanny, which is such a deadly sweeper. Hence, the Flash Cannon Ferro safe swap. You bait out those things Leavanny doesn't want to see, and most importantly, almost always get switch or shield advantage. So today, the battles I'm featuring are 2 4-1 sets that led me to get Legend. However, as I mentioned, I continued to climb with this team all the way up to number 8 in the world, which is my highest leaderboard placing yet. And with that, let's get right into the battles. All right, getting to the first battle, we lead Tentacruel into Poliwrath. This is an amazing lead for the Tentacruel since their entire moveset is going to be resisted here. The counters, the Scalds, the Dynamic Punch, the Icy Wind, doesn't matter which of the 3 they're on, the entire set will be resisted, so we're going to let it go, especially since my opponent is staying in. And now this is one big reason why I am running that Sludge Wave on the Tentacruel, as I mentioned earlier. It allows you to apply heavy damage to these Pokemon where the Scald would be resisted, and then the Acid Spray kind of just does, very abysmal damage to then allow you to Poison Jab it. But in most cases, having that Sludge Wave allows you to either force the shield or just knock it outright. And that's why I'm a bigger fan of the Sludge Wave there. And you see my opponent just stays in. We get a 2-0 shield advantage just like that. So here I can bring in my Leavanny, shield once, and then I'll be able to farm this thing all the way down. And now Leavanny with a ton of energy like this in this cup, there's pretty much nothing my opponent can do at that point. So I will swap out right away. As we see, it's a Tropius. And my opponent is staying in. Seems like they do not have a good answer to the Ferrothorn at this point. Since the Poliwrath is out of the way, that is most likely the only Ferro answer. We land the Flash Cannon, and my opponent decides they do not want to play anymore. GG's. Next battle, we lead Tentacruel into Tentacruel, the Tentacruel Mirror. And after a little bit of experimenting around with this, because you do have Sludge Wave, there's a pretty specific way to play this matchup. You just go for the Scald right away. You hope you win CMP here so you can get the potential Scald debuff off before your opponent does, but either way, it doesn't necessarily impact the way you play this matchup. You're going to go for the first Scald, and then you're just going to overfarm. Just in case your opponent tries to go for a catch of your second Scald, you do want to overfarm, so you can react accordingly to whatever they bring in with. And here, I'm going to go for the Sludge Wave. Since I know Scald won't quite KO, I'm going to go for the Sludge Wave to guarantee the knockout and get that switch advantage. Now, if your opponent doesn't get a Scald debuff and you get a Scald debuff, you can take their second move, overfarm a ton, and then go for a Scald of your own to go for the knockout. You don't need to go for the Sludge Wave there if you get that Scald debuff and your opponent doesn't, because it allows you to save energy and potentially reach another move against whatever your opponent comes in with. Here, it's a Klefki. You may think this is a bad matchup for Leavanny, and while it's not great, it's really not that bad at all, because those Shadow Claws add up over time, as well as those Leaf Blades. They're not resisted, but boy do they hit hard from Leavanny. It all depends what my opponent has in back, but they do have a Cacturn, so unfortunately there is no winning that one for me. So I do concede. GG's. Next battle, Galarian Weezing, fantastic lead. And on a Galarian Weezing lead, always be prepared to swap into your Ferrothorn. Lapras is oftentimes accompanied by a Galarian Weezing lead and is utilized as a safe switch there, or maybe some other water type, or just something weak to Ferrothorn in general. So always be as quick as you can there. Throw that one Poison Jab, see the swap, go into Ferro, and you're in a great spot. Here it looks like my opponent is on Sparkling Aria and Skull Bash, which is fantastic because I can actually tank 3 Sparkling Arias and farm this Lapras all the way down. They don't even get to the third one, which is fantastic. And now they come in with their own Ferro, so I can fire off this Flash Cannon. If it was their own Galarian Weezing, it would just get absolutely deleted by the Flash Cannon. And I do know that it's also a bit Ivy dependent against Lapras, where if you land the Power Whip and they are on Ice Beam, It's a bit IV dependent as to whether you can survive 2 Ice Beams and actually get the Bullet Seed farm down after that as well. Now, just something to keep in mind there if you do have a high-ranked Pharaoh. Little parting Power Whip, bring in Leavanny. They hard swap Weezing, I bring in Tentacruel, and my opponent realizes there is no winning that matchup, so they do concede. GG's. Next battle, Tentacruel into Golisopod. Now, this is a fantastic lead for the Tentacruel, and one that is also a little bit interesting. So I like to farm up, tank their first move, then you build up to the Sludge Wave, and I like to bait with the Scald, because a lot of the times this Golisopod lead is paired with a Lapras and Galarian Weezing behind it, so they are a little bit core broken by the Tentacruel, and by baiting with the Scald, they are most likely shielding because they want to chip away this Tentacruel because they know their Weezing would be useless if it gets in line up to it later. So we do get to a second Scald, which ends up getting a shield from my opponent, which is very interesting because most of the time they'll just let it go and kind of count their losses there. And at that point, shield's down, I'm fine because I know that if this is that Lapras Galarian Weezing team, my Pharaoh is just going to sweep this game. Or I could bring it here against the Lapras, go for the Power Whip. It'll do massive damage against the Lapras, and I'm just going to Bullet Seed down, tank this move, because I know that if it is the Galarian Weezing, I have to save it for the Overheat. And again, they're not an Ice Beam, so I will most definitely be getting the Bullet Seed down here. Tank that second Sparkling Aria. Tank that third Sparkling Aria. They try and snipe with the low health Golisopod. Doesn't work. And now I'm just seeing what they come in with. It's the Lapras, so we tap on through, and there we go. There's the Galarian Weezing. We have the Flash Cannon for it, which if it's Shadow, it will one-shot. It's not Shadow, so it almost one-shots, but we do get to the Power Whip to take it out before they Fairy Wind us down without even having to show our third Pokemon. GG's. Next battle, we lead Tentacruel into Shadow Galarian Weezing. Fantastic lead. And they're going to swap into that Lapras right away. Like I was saying, be prepared to swap as quick as possible. And here we are going to go for the Power Whip. Power Whip does land onto the Lapras, does some very respectable damage. And now we get to see if this one is on Skull Bash or Ice Beam. They do land that Ice Beam. And as you can see, that does just less than half. So I would most likely actually be able to get the Power Whip farm down here, but I don't want to risk it, especially like coming out of DRE, if there's like some attack weight on the Lapras or something. That this is such good alignment for me that I don't even really need to get the farm down there and just get rid of it. Now they have a Shadow Gator in the back, and I'm in a great spot here because I could just shield up the first Hydro, get to the back-to-back Leaf Blades to force both shields for my opponent, and then I would just save the shield for my Tentacruel to close out from there. So Leaf Blade number 1 does get the shield. Leaf Blade number 2 will get their second shield. They won't be able to Shadow Claw down, so they're forced to go for Hydro Cannon, which again, I'm perfectly fine letting go because like I said, my own Tentacruel will be able to close out the match from here. Let this Hydro go. I'm going for the Poison Jab farm down. Just not quite able to do it. So I will give up a shield, thinking that I'm actually not sure if Hydro or Brutal Swing does more here. So I shielded the Hydro just because it's a Shadow Gator. It's like that hits hard. So that was my guess that that's what hits harder. But again, another reason why we have that Sludge Wave, massive damage onto the Galarian Weezing, and we take it out for the 4-1 set. Needing a 3-2 to reach Legend in this set. Lapras Lead, swap right away into that Ferrothorn. They meet it with the Shadow Cacturn. I make a little bit of a mistake here. I don't even build up to a Flash Cannon and go straight for the Power Whip. Like, it's a Shadow Cacturn, even a Power Whip's going to hit hard and basically force a shield from your opponent. But build up to that Flash Cannon and then bait. It's pretty much safe to guarantee the shield there anyways. Now, my opponent does go for the Trailblaze, which lets me get to another Power Whip. That's very nice. because I get some good damage down onto that Cacturne, and now I can Poison Jab it down without taking too much additional Sucker Punch damage. Now, another thing about Lapras Leads, you save swap into your Ferrothorn. If the Lapras stays in and allows you to get to the Power Whip, always over farm by 1 past it, because what I've noticed is they're looking to catch that Power Whip on their Flyer, on their Steel and Fairy type or something like that. So by you over farming by 1, you're watching for that catch, and then you get to land the Flash Cannon, of which does massive damage or would be able to get you shield advantage. And as you saw in this, shield advantage Leavanny just goes off, which is kind of the goal of the team. The Pharaoh safe swap baits out Leavanny's hardest counter, as well as gets you shield advantage or flip switch basically every time. So then that shield advantage Leavanny is able to go to town. GG's. Next battle, Jellicent Lead, terrible lead. We're going to swap into that Ferrothorn, see what my opponent wants to do, and they're going to stay in. So like I said, the same thing with the Lapras Leads. Here's a good example, but with the Jellicent, we're going to overfarm by 1 because my opponent was looking to catch the Power Whip on their Flyer, on the Tropius. But because we held onto our energy, we can land these Flash Cannons against it. They do land an Aerial Ace. We're going to fire off another Flash Cannon here. This will do massive damage to the Tropius. It is just able to hang on, which is kind of unfortunate. But I do want to flip switch here. And I wasn't sure what the Tropius energy was at this point, because if you notice, when I paused, my opponent paused too. So like the game animations didn't update, so I wasn't sure if I missed an Air Slash there or not. I wasn't sure if I could have done a Bullet Seed or farm down, so we threw the Power Up just to be safe. And that actually may cost us this game, because even though we have the alignment we want, that Cacturne was able to chip my Tentacruel quite a bit, and now this Jellicent up a shield is just going to put in work against my Leavanny. So on that safe swap there with the Tropius, I was really hoping to get a shield from one of those Flash Cannons, because my opponent wants to maintain switch. And because they had a Shadow Cacturne, I'm kind of surprised that they didn't end up giving up a shield there, because Tentacruel kind of does really well in a Shadow Cacturne, but they did play that well. Unfortunately, not quite able to reach the Scald, and falling 1 Poison Jab short, that this is going to be game over, because my opponent is able to catch the Scald that I reach here on their Cacturne, and I do not have enough HP left to take out the Jellicent, which doesn't even matter because they do have a move. Well played by my opponent as the Leavanny goes down. GG's. Next battle, we lead Tentacruel into another Lapras. So we're going to save swap into that Ferrothorn, as we know. And see here, they actually don't stay in all the way. They bank a little bit of energy. They're bringing a Moongus, which is fine, because like I mentioned this entire time, the important part of having Flash Cannon forces shield or switch, which you see there, we get the shield advantage right off the bat like that. So I'm satisfied. I'm going to let the Pharaoh go down, and they go for a Sludge Bomb, which is very interesting. So it seems that they are on Sludge Bomb and Grass Knot instead of Foul Play and one of those other two. Get to another Flash Cannon. I'm going to let this go because my opponent is forced to throw. And now I'm just going to farm this down with my Tentacruel. I will take a decent amount of damage from the Grass Knot, which isn't going to be nice. But like I said, the goal of this team is to give shield advantage Leavanny a chance to sweep. Can't quite get the farm down, so I will go for the Scald. They bring the Lapras, and now I hard pivot Leavanny, and they're staying in, which means they could be core broken by Leavanny. They only go for a Sparking Gnarly. I was counting, I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is only like 12, so this can't be an Ice Beam. I let it go, and I ended up being right. It was only the Sparkling Aria, and that is why they stayed in with the Lapras, because they have a Hisuian Electrode. That X-Scissor does so much damage, and so we can shield once, farm it all the way down, and from this point, Leavanny basically 100 energy. This Lapras is done for, which my opponent lets the first Leaf Blade go. See if they want to shield up the second one. or they just let it go since they do realize it is over. GG's. Next battle, Tentacruel into Cradily. This is a good matchup for the Tentacruel in the zeros, which is the way we play it out. Opponent throws after 5 bullet seeds for good timing, which is perfectly fine. We're going to let it go and then go for the Scald of our own. This matchup gets a little bit better if you do get the Scald debuff, of course, because that way you survive with a little bit more HP and the potential to reach a 3rd Scald against the next Pokemon your opponent brings in. So I'm going to overfarm, go for the next Scald. So I was fortunate enough to get that first Scald debuff, so I do leave a little bit more HP. And if you don't leave with if you don't get that Scald debuff, that's perfectly fine. You'll let their second move go, and then you'll still reach your second Scald regardless, of which if your opponent shields, then you're just in a great spot. But here my opponent does let their Cradily go down, come in with a Lantern. I have 2 fantastic answers to the Lantern, so I pivot into the Ferrothorn to bait out their strongest feral answer, which is the Tropius, and that's amazing because now I have the Tropius on my Pharaoh, and I have the Leavanny for the Lantern. They do correctly double shield the Flash Cannon, and we make the prediction correct. We catch an Aerial Ace, and that is just going to put us in a fantastic spot here. We're already in a pretty good spot because I could have shielded one, then let one go, reached a Flash Cannon, and then an X-Scissor would have been enough to take the Tropius out from there, while Leavanny most likely would have been able to handle the Lantern after that. But catching that Aerial Ace onto our low health Tentacruel is kind of the nail in the coffin. You see here, I let that go. I have the shield advantage. Can shield once in return. Gonna fire off this X-Scissor, making sure I see the Air Slash come through so they're not catching onto their Lantern. And now here I can just get to the back-to-back Leaf Blades. I do survive any move from the Lantern at this health range, so I am not worried. We get to the back-to-back. First Leaf Blade will land, massive damage to Lantern, and second Leaf Blade will take it out. As Leaf Blade goes through, and down goes Lantern. GG's. So we do have 3 wins in this set. We do have Legend secured, but we're looking to get even more elo on it with a 4-1 set as we lead Tentacruel into Mantine. Again, I've mentioned this so often. Sludge Wave is crucial for this team, for those matchups you saw before against like the Galarian and Weezing, as well as to hit maybe Lapras hard, but also so you demolish Mantine in the zeros. Overfarm on energy, go for this Sludge Wave. It lands a massive damage. We can easily tank a second Aerial Ace here and get the farm down, and then we'll have a Scald or even a Sludge Wave to threaten whatever they come in with next. I see it's a Jelly. I pivot Pharaoh because I do have that Leavanny. They have that Shadow Cactus, and I'm just going to go for the Power Whip. I know that as long as I can get damage down on this Cacturne, I'm going to be in a good spot. So I do get their first shield with the Power Whip. And I know that I have a lot of energy on my Tentacruel, which is perfectly fine because I can let my Pharaoh go, get their final shield with the Scald of my Tentacruel, that if it doesn't get their final shield, then again, Leavanny is just going to sweep. But it does get their final shield, so I can pivot into my own Leavanny, go for a Leaf Blade to take it out, and then chunk away at the Jellicent with additional Leaf Blades. So see here, I overfarm a little bit just in case they try to make a catch. It doesn't matter because if they make a catch, I would just be able to Shadow Claw down anyways, but they don't. And now we get to throw 1 Leaf Blade at this Jelly, and then a second Leaf Blade at this Jelly before they are able to get to back-to-back moves to take out my Leavanny. Down goes Jelly, and that is a good game as we do secure the 4-1 set, which also, more importantly, secures Legend for us, as you will see here, bringing us up all the way to an elo of 3030. After I recorded this, I did realize I misspoke earlier in the video, so as a thank you for watching this long, I'll correct that mistake right here. I mentioned how it's IV dependent on the Pharaoh, where if you land a Power Whip, tank 2 Ice Beams, and then Bullet Seed down a Lapras. It's actually IV dependent on the Lapras' side, where if they have a high stat product, they'll actually farm you down after landing 2 Ice Beams before you farm them down. So use your best judgment in that scenario as to whether or not you should throw the second Power Whip before their second Ice Beam, of which, if you're relying on switch advantage, I highly recommend you do. But yeah, top 8 in the world with this team. I originally picked Leavanny because I wanted to run something fun, and let me tell you, not only has it been fun, but it's been an absolute force to be reckoned with. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.